G'day guys, Alex here from Trademate Sports, and today I'm going to take you through 6 ways to control your emotions when sports betting. Controlling emotions in sports betting is essential to make logical decisions, reduce impulsive betting, and avoid unnecessary losses. Emotional discipline leads to a more stable betting strategy, which increases the chance of long-term profitability. So due to the importance of controlling your emotions when sports betting, I thought it would be a good idea to take you through 6 ways I control my emotions when sports betting. But before I get into the video, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you get a notification anytime we post a video like this.
It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
Tip number 1 is to not watch the live scores of any games or watch the games. There's really nothing to gain from watching live scores or following along with live scores. At the end of the day, you've placed your bet. Whatever happens with the result is the result. The thing that was most important about that bet was what happened before that. Did you get any closing line value? Was your process good? All these kinds of things. In terms of the outcome, sure, it's important in terms of your profit and loss, but in terms of your emotional stability, it's probably going to have too much of an effect on how you go about the rest of your day. So rather than spending time watching live scores, which is basically a complete waste of time, you're better off keeping your emotions on an even keel and focusing on your next bet. As I said at the start, I also wouldn't recommend watching games at all, but that also depends on your strategy. So for someone like me who bets on the UFC and I do a lot of tape study and a lot of my bets are reflective of what I've seen on tape and I don't think they're reflective in the market. So let's just say I bet on fighter X and I don't get any closing line value at all. But I believe the market hasn't taken into consideration certain things. It's important for me to watch that fight to see if I was the one missing something or if it was the market missing something. They're kind of the only cases. Maybe if you're doing some kind of match analysis or game analysis that we've talked about on the podcast before or this channel in general, if you're doing some kind of qualitative betting where it's all from what your eyes are seeing, then I think fair enough if you want to watch the games or, watch the games for your own entertainment. But if your purpose is just to get closing line value, you don't need to do anything after the game starts. You can simply check the closing odds of what the game was just before it starts, and that's the only real evaluation that needs to be done. So for me, I think tracking live scores and also watching the games in general is going to be something that you don't need to do and will keep your emotions a little bit stable if you don't do so. Tip number 2 is constantly evaluating your betting process. Now, you're going to have a lot less emotional swings if you're extremely confident in what you're doing. You need to have belief in what you're doing. If you don't have belief in what you're doing, then you're going to be always emotionally uncertain and, fragile when it comes to your sports betting. You're always going to be worried about or thinking, is this really good what I'm doing? Is it profitable? Is it plus EV? But if you have a strong evaluation of what you're doing and it's correct and you have the process, then that's going to eliminate a lot of your, emotional ups and downs when it comes to your betting. So how do you get really good at evaluating your sports betting? Well, firstly, you need to become an expert at tracking your bets. And if you become an expert at tracking your bets, it's going to become so easy to evaluate your betting process. For example, the Trademate Sports software, where you've got the analytics page and the big data tool, they give you such good feedback on how you're going and where you're going wrong, what you're doing right, how many trades you've placed. If you need any questions answered about your betting, you can go there and you get it straight away. And it's the same with anything that you're using to track your bets. If you get really good at tracking your bets, you're going to be able to find the holes in your game so much quicker than if your tracking process is either non-existent or not good enough. So I can use a quick example here of my own betting. Chelsea versus Arsenal on the weekend. I bet Arsenal, draw no bet. I thought that was a good price, but I'm also an Arsenal fan. So I was a little bit worried that I was being biased towards that. Good thing I could do was reevaluate, was I biased or not? So I could go back after the bet was placed, check out the closing line and did I get any value? And yes, I did. I got a tiny bit of value there, a 2.87 edge, closing edge. So I could go back and see that yes, I wasn't being biased because because I'm an Arsenal fan. I was actually making a good logical bet at the time. Tip number 3 is understanding variance. Now, we've talked about variance a lot on this channel before, but if you become an expert on variance and understanding how crazy variance can be in either direction, you're gonna be able to understand, short-term losses or short-term big wins a lot more clearly, and it's not going to affect your emotions as much. Ways that you can understand variance, well, you can read all about it for a start off. We've done numerous videos on this channel about it, numerous articles on our blog on what variance is and how it works in sports betting. But another good thing you can do is variance simulations, which I've also talked about a lot on this channel before. I'm sorry for those that have heard this a million times before, but I like to use a website called Sports Betting Calcs, which is a bet simulator. And on this website, you can punch in what your average odds you're placing bets on is, the edge you have in this market, and also your sample size of bets. And by punching in those 3 things, you're able to simulate all the different outcomes that could happen. So an example on my screen here, I've typed in that I have a 10% ROI. I've only placed 100 bets and average odds of 1.9. Simulate this a few times and you can see that chances of loss at the end after 100 bets is around 14%. Now, most people wouldn't think that there's basically any chance of loss at the end after 100 bets at a 10% ROI. 10% ROI is huge in sports betting. So it really shows that sample size is key. I make that 200 bets and immediately my chances of losing at the end have halved. So it really shows the effects that variance can have on your betting. So if you get really good at understanding how variance works and simulate it a few times with regards to your own betting, then you're going to be able to stay a lot more emotionally in control. Tip number 4 is to vent. Now, I'm no therapist or psychologist, but I think there's definitely some usefulness in having someone you can talk to about your sports betting. And I mean, even if you're having your own mental problems outside of sports betting, it's useful to have someone that you can talk to about that also. But with regards to betting, if you have someone that you can talk to about your sports betting, that is going to be so useful. It's really important not to internalize everything, because when you internalize everything, one day you're going to explode. If you have someone in the betting industry or someone that knows a lot about sports betting that you can kind of just talk about, it doesn't even have to be some kind of chat where someone gives you feedback on your betting, just someone that you can talk to that's, very understanding of what you're going through. That's always helpful, because it's more useful to have things out in the open and be able to communicate with people rather than internalize everything. Tip number 5 is to avoid short-term results tracking. So as I've shown in the variance simulations and, all sorts of things when it comes to betting, the short term is not really important when it comes to sports betting. It's all about getting in as many bets as possible, as much turnover as possible to let variance play out. And once you've got that larger sample size, you're able to evaluate more effectively on your sports betting results. So when you're tracking your results and updating your profit and loss column, try and do that every month. Or even if you can, do it every quarter of a year. It's important to keep control of where your bankroll is, but the longer you can wait to tracking your results, it's going to affect your emotions a lot less. If you're going in every day or hourly and checking how much money you've lost on a particular strategy, once again, it's going to have your emotions going up and down. You need to keep them on an even keel as much as possible. So by tracking them monthly, your results are probably going to be a lot more steadier. It allows variance to play out a lot more, and you're not going to have these, one day or couple of hour situations where you've had huge wins or huge losses. And my last tip for being able to control your emotions when sports betting is bankroll management. 2 simple tips here. 1 is to have an effective staking strategy, which I talked about last week on the YouTube channel. I gave you guys some great ways to make sure you're staking effectively in sports betting. But the main thing with that is you want to bet percentages of your bankroll so that you never go broke and you're always staking appropriately with the size of your bankroll. It doesn't matter how big, how small your bankroll is, you want to be betting a percentage of your bankroll. So if you're always doing that, 1, you'll never go broke, and also you're betting appropriately with regards to your bankroll. In terms of what percentage you should be staking on each of your bets, Well, that's completely down to your edge and the odds, which I went through in that video last week. But you should never be staking more than 2 to 3% in terms of a max bet. If you've got a shorter odds and you've got a huge edge, generally that's when you're going to be looking at max staking something. So make sure that if you are going to lose your max bet, that you're not losing a huge sum like 5 to 10% of your bankroll. That's way too big to be losing in one bet and to have, risk on one outcome. We at Trademate Sports recommend that your max bet is generally no larger than 2 to 2.5%. And that concludes my 6 tips on how to control your emotions a little bit better when sports betting. As I stated before, if you're looking to control your emotions a little bit better and have a really good track of where you are with your sports betting, try out Trademate Sports. You're going to be able to analyze your bets so much more effectively and hopefully keep your emotions a lot more in check. And also, if you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See you guys next time.